We're here with actor Bryan Fenkart, who is #1 a Rutgers alum.
Yes.
Mason Gross School of the Arts.
That's the one.
And also you may recognize him from Memphis on Broadway and also in the national tour.
Yeah.
And he was just in the show Nobody Loves You this summer.
Yes.
So why don't you talk a little bit about when you first wanted to become an actor? Are you originally from here and then went to Rutgers?
Well, I'm from Jersey, so Rutgers was sort of the the natural. Everyone from Jersey is gonna apply to Rutgers, and I got it. But I went to Mason Gross School of the Arts, their conservatory program. But I started in high school, I guess, but just doing the usual high school productions. And I actually started because I lost a bet with a high school classmate in an English class, who, if I lost, I don't remember the actual bet now or what the stakes were on her end, but if I lost, I had to join the drama that year, which was Woody Allen's "Don't Drink the Water."
Okay.
And that was how I started, was because I lost a bet. But I kind of just fell in love with it, and the storytelling aspect of it. And I grew up watching movies with my family, and I was like, well, wait a second, this is an option. Like, I can do this for a living and get paid, and for doing something that's actually fun and that I love. And I really started cracking down on the craft of it. And
sounds like she lost the bet because you ended.
I know, right? And it was a stupid bet too, because it was something having to do with whether or not I would do better on an English test than she did. So it was like, no, you're smarter than me. No, you're smarter than me. So not only did I get a better grade on the test, but I ended up with a career out of it. So
works for you and any other person who's watching this.
Yeah.
So what did you do after Mason Gross School of the Arts? Did you move to the city to pursue work?
I did eventually. I took me until I was about 25 till I could move into the city. But back then, I had the survival job like everybody else, where you're still trying to pay your rent. So I was a doorman at Caroline's on Broadway, the comedy club. Mm-hmm. I was a doorman there for about 3 years, making like $10 an hour. And in the mornings, I used to write comedy for WABC Radio.
Okay.
So I used to get up at about 4:45 in the morning, and it was still dark out, go over to 2 Penn Plaza above Madison Square Garden, and we would just take things out of the headlines and write comedy sketches about them, and we'd give them to Curtis and Kuby and Scott and Todd, and write and produce these things, and that sort of helped me with what would later become stand-up comedy and voiceover. So that started coming out of that. So really, I haven't skipped a step yet, because I went from all the crap jobs that everybody has to start with, to writing comedy, to performing stand-up, to all that jazz. So I kind of haven't really skipped any steps in between. So now I do voiceover also as a supplemental income kind of thing, which is great.
Great, because it's easy.
Well, it's not a ton of time, and once you get into that world, it becomes something that's just sort of a great standby on the side while you're pursuing stuff like this. So you don't have to wait at tables or bartend or whatever. It's a nice way to sort of pay your rent while you're looking for the Broadway gigs, which are obviously fewer and farther between.
Yeah. Even for someone of your considerable talent. Now, you also did a horror film called Red Hook.
I did do Red Hook.
I did my research.
You did. Unfortunately, you did.
What was the experience of filming a horror film like? And was that during your comedy?
It was. That was one of my first jobs, actually, and it was interesting because it was a lot of first timers. There were a lot of people, like even the director had never done a horror film before, and it was the writer's first stab, no pun intended, at a horror film, and a lot of the actors were sort of theater alums, so it was a lot of our first foray into film. So we were all learning as we went, which if you see it, you might be able to tell. But I mean, it's like any slasher, it's the kind of thing that if I weren't in it, I'd make fun of it, or I'd still make fun of it. But it is fun. I mean, if you like that kind of movie, which I do, it's a good time. But of course,
every actor has a horror film in the back.
Everybody, yeah.
So talk a little bit about after that when you started going out for Broadway roles.
Yeah, well, the Broadway thing is still, oddly enough, sort of new to me because, I had auditioned for a few things and gotten close, Rent, and a couple other things, but it just didn't quite hit. But it was never something that was really on my radar. It was something that my agent sort of said, well, you sing and you write your own music and you act. Why don't you at least try musical theater?
Right.
And my initial resistance was that I don't dance. I mean, it's just not something I can do. I can mimic other people dancing, but I can't really do it. You know. So, but I thought, what the hell? I mean, it's something I would try, and the audition for Memphis came up to understudy Chad, and you know, with an understudy job, you never know if it's gonna do you any good at all, or if you're just gonna sit around doing nothing. And it turned out that I went on a ton. So
I was gonna say, Chad was out.
Yeah, so it ended up being quite a boon for me, because then they, without even auditioning, they just offered me the tour. Because they knew I could do it. They'd seen me do it, so why audition at that point? They were like, well, that is your audition. You did it. You know.
What was it like playing to the Broadway audiences? It's such a musical that probably gets people to their feet every night.
Yeah,
and you being the lead of it.
I don't know that experience will be duplicated anytime soon, because not a lot of roles like that exist, I think, in musical theater that are such monstrous sort of. You never leave the stage, you know, and it's an emotional roller coaster. It's really like, I mean, everything about that character is complex, and you know, and it's hard to it's a challenge, and it's one of those roles that doesn't come up very often. So I mean, and doing that, you know, in my first Broadway show was really kind of vindicating, but also you know. Knowing that those roles don't exist a lot, I have to prepare myself to sort of know that not everything is going to be so meaty, and you know, I'm not always going to be able to sort of sink my teeth into this sort of character work all the time.
What was it like doing the tour? Did you enjoy going on tour better than being based, or was it a little harder?
It was both. I mean, I enjoyed it more because the role was mine now, and I could sort of make it my own rather than doing exactly what Chad had done, which I mean, I still kept a lot of, because if it ain't broke, you know, don't fix it. So I took a lot of what he did and took it on the road with me, but I also got to really, when I got to rehearse with it, which I didn't really get to do as the understudy, I could really add my own flavor to it, and, you know, sort of my own quirks and things like that. So that I liked better, but it was also really hard. I mean, because you're doing 8 shows a week, Tuesday through Sunday. You travel Monday, and you start again Tuesday. So really, even your day off, your weekend, you're traveling. And that's always a pain in the butt, you know, especially when you're going to airports. It's just a long day, you know.
Absolutely.
So it was taxing to do that for a year and 9 months. Was a lot, you know. Lost a lot of weight, pardon the voice. So it was very difficult, but also, I mean, it felt like boot camp. After doing that, I feel like I can do anything, because it was you know, hard. And I feel like once you go through an experience like that, it's like you know, going through like P90X. I feel like I'm worked out. All my actor muscles are worked out, you know.
Now, quickly back to your audition for Rent. Did you go out for Roger, or did you go out for Mark?
It was for Roger, and the funny thing is,
I could see you as both.
Oddly enough, so could my agents. They sent me in for Mark. And I showed up in the room having prepared, and they said, and they kind of looked at their sheet and they were like, "Are you reading Mark?" I said, "Yeah." They said, "Come back tomorrow as Roger." So I had like done all this work.
That's so crazy.
But they said,
could
"Yeah,
theoretically be either or."
It's the glasses. That's what it is. If I took these off, see, now I'm Roger.
But I was going to say that's all the character of Mark.
Right.
Is.
That's
glasses.
just
That's not,
glasses.
That was so not what I meant.
No, I know. But yeah, it was actually the final run of Rent, and I remember when I went in, it was down to me and Will Chase was who got it. And I remember them telling me at that point they didn't think my voice would hold out for 8 shows a week, and I was untested at that point. There was no way that they could know that I could, and I have since proved that. But that was years ago. But you know.
Now, while you were on tour, you were recording your full-length EP, Simple and Gray. Is that correct?
It was actually before I left.
Before you left.
Thank goodness. Yeah, but it was while I was rehearsing. So it was a lot of work, and I kind of had to rush the final portion of that to get it done before I left, because I wanted to sell it while I was on the road and promote it. But you can actually hear a lot in that album. There's some country twang that sort of exists, I think, just by virtue of the fact that I had been a part of Memphis for almost 4 years.
Wow.
You know, I mean, now it's been almost 4 years. At that time, it was about 2.
Yeah.
You know, but you can hear it in the music. It's funny because like that's just where I was at that time in my life, was, you know, writing and recording music that sort of sounded like where I was at in my life, which was doing Memphis. I mean, it was so much of my life that you can hear it bleed into the sound. You know.
Have you done another EP since then?
No, I'm writing. I'm always writing. At this point, it's a matter of narrowing it down to the best songs. You know, you always want to go into the studio with more than you're gonna record, as opposed to going in with less and trying to scramble to get it.
Right.
You know, so I'd like to do another album at some point, but it's not quite there. So,
But you're still doing shows around the city, right?
I will be.
Yeah.
I took a little break because of the tour. I got really rusty with my own playing. I found when I got back
Really?
home, I kind of had to relearn my own catalog, you know, because I didn't really have a chance to go out and gig while I was doing Memphis on the road. Much as I would have loved to, because I was hitting so many cities, it would have been nice, but I just couldn't really do it vocally and time-wise. When I got home, I sort of realized, I'm like, wow, I don't remember a lot of my own stuff. I was like, I gotta kind of relearn my own songs. So I'm doing that now. And like in December-ish, I have a few gigs coming up, so I can start getting back out there and reminding people I exist.
Put that out on with the interview.
Yeah.
Finally, what advice would you offer to people who are just starting out? Like you said, you literally went from college to did every step.
Yeah.
Was there ever a time you wanted to pack it in? You've been successful the whole time now, so
Yeah, well,
it's kind of like you probably wouldn't pack
it's
it
funny
in.
because you asked, but have I ever thought of packing it in? And yeah, I do
Really?
every day. But you just don't. You know, if this is what you live to do, then you just don't. I doubt myself every day. My ability, my talent, my look, my vocal prowess. You know, everything. You have these doubts. I mean, insecurity is sort of interwoven, I think, into the actor
Right.
mentality. You know, but there's also this sort of restlessness that you always want to be doing more and doing better and being the best version of yourself and the best artist that you can be. And if that isn't there, you probably shouldn't be doing that. So when you ask about advice that I would give, and I know it sounds harsh, but I do always give this advice, is that if there's something else that you have thought of doing or would rather do or have as a safety net, like I want to act, but let me do this on the side, just do the other thing. Because you won't get to the level you want to get to unless this is your full-time obsession, basically. I mean,
Right.
it really takes a certain type of, neurotic sort of madness to do this full-time. It has to become a part of you. It has to be something that you can't live without. And I think if it's something you can live without, then you might as well do that because you'll find happiness elsewhere. You know?
And in that neurotic, is you going in for a role and then second guessing everything you did, or
Yeah.
or why did they not like me, or was I not right for the character? So
Exactly.
you really
right.
have to be wound
and
tight.
it rarely has anything to do with you.
Right.
Rarely does it have anything to do with what you did in the room. It's either your look, or it's a chemistry thing, or maybe you're too tall, or it could be any number of things.
Right.
That usually aren't the things that are going through your head when you leave the room, which is, oh, they hated me, I sucked, I didn't do this right, I went up on this line. They usually don't even notice that stuff.
Right. So that's really an important skill you have to not take rejection personally.
Yeah, and we are wired as people to take that sort of thing personally. If you get rejected, you're going to take it personally.
Absolutely.
It's your job to sort of be able to say, okay, it happened, it's done, on to the next one, and not let it eat you alive. You know what I mean? Like, I'll have days when I have a crap audition, and I'll go home and beat myself up for the night, and then you got to wake up the next day and let it go. Do it
Keep
all
on
again.
trucking, right?
You have to. Yeah.
Was there any role that you thought you nailed that you didn't get? In terms of either Broadway, off-Broadway, a movie?
Yeah, probably. I felt like the Rent audition had gone well. I was very close to getting 30 Rock at a time. I got to read with Tina Fey and Tracy Morgan and all them. I got very close to the end of that. But the funny thing is, it's usually the ones that you think you did well.
That you have done.
Yeah, and it's not. And then the ones that this has happened so many times where it's the ones you think you blew, that you actually did something maybe just unexpected and unplanned, and they loved it, and you hated it because it wasn't what you planned.
Right.
But it turns out it was actually the absolute right thing. Was something that you hadn't even planned to happen in the room, and so usually the ones that I thought were the biggest, travesties ended up being some of the best.
Mm-hmm. Well, Bryan, thank you so much for sitting down with me to do this interview.
Yeah.
Look forward to hearing about your upcoming concerts.
Yeah, hopefully soon.
Yeah, and all the best to you, and thanks again.
Thanks, man. Nice to meet you.